The crystalline spires of Galactic University pierced the violet sky of Xenon Prime, their iridescent surfaces reflecting the light of 3 moons. Nestled in the heart of the Andromeda Galaxy, this prestigious institution stood as a beacon of interstellar knowledge and cooperation. Species from across the cosmos sent their brightest minds here to learn, grow, and forge the future of galactic society. On this particular day, the usual bustle of diverse alien life forms seemed charged with an extra spark of excitement. Whispers and chirps in 1,000 different languages filled the air as students of all shapes, sizes, and colors gathered in the grand atrium. The cause of their anticipation: the imminent arrival of a species that had, until recently, been nothing more than a curiosity in the galactic community, a human. Professor Xylex, a tall, willowy being with shimmering blue skin and 4 arms, stood at the center of the atrium. His large, multifaceted eyes scanned the crowd of students, a mixture of pride and apprehension evident in his posture. "Settle down, everyone," he called out, his voice a melodious trill that cut through the chatter. "As you all know, today marks a historic moment for Galactic University. We are about to welcome our first human exchange student." A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. Some students leaned in, eager to catch a glimpse of the newcomer. Others hung back, their appendages twitching nervously. The sleek, silver doors at the far end of the atrium slid open with a soft hiss. A hush fell over the assembled aliens as a lone figure stepped through. Zara Chen stood barely over 5 feet tall, her frame dwarfed by many of the alien species around her. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her brown eyes widened as she took in the spectacular sight before her. She wore the standard jumpsuit of Galactic University, but it seemed to hang awkwardly on her bipedal form, clearly designed with other body types in mind. As Zara walked forward, her steps echoing in the sudden silence, she couldn't help but feel like a specimen under a microscope. Hundreds of eyes, some with multiple pupils, others glowing, and a few that weren't eyes at all but sensory organs beyond her comprehension, focused solely on her. Professor Xylex glided forward, extending 2 of his 4 hands in what he hoped was a welcoming gesture. "Ms. Chen, welcome to Galactic University. We are honored to have you join us." Zara took a deep breath, reminding herself of the years of training and preparation that had led to this moment. She was here not just for herself, but as a representative of all humanity. She reached out and grasped the professor's hand, noting the cool, smooth texture of his skin. "Thank you, Professor Xylex," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "I'm excited to be here and eager to learn alongside my fellow students from across the galaxy." A murmur ran through the crowd. Some students seemed impressed by her composure, while others whispered about the strange sounds her vocal cords produced. As the initial shock of her arrival wore off, students began to approach Zara. A gelatinous being oozed forward, its translucent body pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. "Greetings, human," it burbled, the universal translator converting its vibrations into words Zara could understand. "I am Glob from the methane seas of Titan IV. Your species has long fascinated me. Is it true that you require dihydrogen monoxide to survive?" Before Zara could answer, a tall, insectoid creature with iridescent wings and compound eyes stepped forward. "Ignore Glob's boring chemistry questions," it chittered. "What we all want to know is, how do you manage with only 2 arms and legs?" It seemed so inefficient. Zara blinked, momentarily taken aback by the directness of the questions. She had expected curiosity, but the reality of being the sole representative of her species was beginning to sink in. "Well," she began, choosing her words carefully, "humans have adapted to make the most of our physiology. We may not have multiple limbs or specialized appendages, but we've developed tools and technologies to compensate." The insectoid alien's antennae twitched with interest. "Fascinating. Perhaps there's more to your species than we initially thought." As more students gathered around, peppering Zara with questions about Earth, human culture, and biology, Professor Xylex cleared his throat, or what passed for a throat in his species. "There will be plenty of time for cultural exchange in the coming days," he announced. "For now, let's allow Ms. Chen to settle into her quarters and prepare for orientation." Zara nodded gratefully at the professor. As exciting as this was, the weight of interstellar travel and the overwhelming nature of her arrival were starting to take their toll. As she followed Professor Xilex towards the student accommodations, Zara couldn't help but notice a group of aliens hanging back from the main crowd. Their bodies were covered in a metallic exoskeleton, and their eyes glowed with an eerie red light. Unlike the other students, their posture seemed less curious and more wary. "Professor," Zara asked quietly, "who are those students over there? They seem different from the others." Xylex's eyes swiveled to follow her gaze. "Ah, those are the Zixkri. They're from a highly advanced cybernetic civilization. They tend to keep to themselves and are skeptical of organic life forms they deem primitive. I wouldn't concern yourself with them for now." Zara frowned but said nothing. She had a feeling that the Zixkri's attitude might become a problem down the line. As they reached her quarters, a room that looked more like a multi-environment habitat than a dorm room, Professor Xilex turned to her with all four of his eyes focused intently. "Ms. Chen, I must impress upon you the importance of your presence here. You are not just a student. You are an ambassador for your entire species. The success or failure of your time here could have far-reaching consequences for humanity's place in the galactic community." Zara nodded solemnly. "I understand, Professor. I won't let Earth down." As the door closed behind her, leaving Zara alone in her new alien home, she let out a long breath. The enormity of her task was daunting, but also exhilarating. She was about to embark on the adventure of a lifetime, pushing the boundaries of human experience and knowledge. Little did she know that her greatest challenge, and humanity's greatest opportunity, was just around the corner, waiting in the depths of the xenobiology lab. Adapting and discoveries. The first few weeks at Galactic University proved to be a whirlwind of new experiences for Zara. Each day brought fresh challenges, from deciphering the complex, multidimensional equations in her advanced physics class to navigating the literal minefield of the alien cuisine in the cafeteria. Yet, despite the difficulties, Zara found herself thriving on the constant stimulation and learning. One particularly memorable morning, Zara entered the xenobiology lab, her eyes wide with wonder at the array of bizarre specimens floating in stasis fields around the room. Professor Zalfar, a being composed entirely of swirling gases contained within a transparent exoskeleton, hovered at the front of the class. Today, the professor's voice resonated through the room. "We will be studying the adaptive capabilities of various species under extreme conditions." As the class progressed, Zara found herself paired with Clix, the insectoid alien she had met on her first day. They were tasked with analyzing the cellular structure of a creature that could survive in the vacuum of space. "Fascinating," Clix chittered, his compound eyes fixed on the microscope. "The cell walls are reinforced with a crystalline structure I've never seen before." Zara leaned in to take a look, her brow furrowed in concentration. As she adjusted the microscope, she noticed something odd. "Wait a second," she murmured. "Those aren't just crystals. They're moving." Clix's antennae twitched in surprise. "Moving? That's impossible. The specimen is in stasis." But Zara was certain. She quickly jotted down her observations and raised her hand. "Professor Zalfar, I think we found something unusual." The gaseous professor drifted over, curiosity evident in the swirling patterns of his form. "What have you discovered, Ms. Chen?" Zara explained her observations, pointing out the minute movements within the cellular structure. Professor Zalfar's gases swirled faster, a sign of excitement. "Extraordinary," he exclaimed. "In all my years studying this specimen, I've never noticed this behavior. Your human eyes must be uniquely suited to detecting this type of motion." A ripple of murmurs spread through the class. Zara felt a mix of pride and embarrassment at being the center of attention once again. As the class ended, Clicks turned to Zora, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "You continue to surprise us, human. Perhaps we underestimated the capabilities of your species." Zora smiled, about to respond, when she noticed the Zixcree students at the back of the room. Their glowing red eyes were fixed on her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their gaze held more than just curiosity. As the days passed, Zora found herself forming an unlikely group of friends. Besides Clicks, there was Glob, the gelatinous being who was always eager to learn more about human biology, and Zira, a plant-based life form whose photosynthetic skin changed colors with her moods. One evening, as they gathered in the common area to study, Zora couldn't help but marvel at the diversity of her new friends. "You know," she said, looking around at the group, "back on Earth, we used to wonder if we were alone in the universe. It's amazing to think about how much life is out there." Zira's leaves rustled, turning a soft shade of blue, her equivalent of a smile. "And it's equally amazing for us to learn about Earth. Your planet seems so dynamic." Glob burbled in agreement, his translucent body rippling. "Indeed, the way your species has adapted to such a wide range of environments on a single planet is quite remarkable." As they continued their discussion, delving into comparisons between Earth's ecosystems and those of other worlds, Zara felt a growing sense of pride in her heritage. She had come to Galactic University feeling like an outsider, a representative of a primitive species. But now she was beginning to see humanity's unique strengths. Their study session was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway. Students were rushing towards the central atrium, voices raised in excitement and concern. "What's going on?" Zara asked, as they joined the flow of aliens. Clicks, using his height to peer over the crowd, chittered nervously. "It seems there's been some kind of accident in the quantum engineering lab." They arrived at the atrium to find it in chaos. In the center of the room, a swirling vortex of energy pulsed and crackled, growing larger by the second. Professor Xilex and other faculty members were frantically working at control panels, trying to contain the phenomenon. "It's a runaway quantum singularity," someone shouted. "If it's not contained, it could tear the university apart." Zara watched as alien after alien attempted to approach the vortex, only to be driven back by the intense energy. Even the Zixcree, with their advanced cybernetic bodies, couldn't get close enough to affect the controls. In that moment, Zara remembered something from her Earth studies, a quirk of human physiology that had never seemed particularly useful before. "Wait," she shouted, pushing her way to the front. "Let me try." Professor Xilex turned to her, all four of his eyes wide with shock. "Ms. Chen, it's too dangerous. Your organic form couldn't possibly withstand the quantum fluctuations." But Zara was already moving. She took a deep breath, focusing her mind the way she had been taught in her advanced meditation classes back on Earth. As she approached the vortex, she could feel the energy crackling around her, trying to push her back. But unlike the aliens, whose complex biological or technological systems were disrupted by the quantum effects, Zora's relatively simple human nervous system seemed to be resistant. Gritting her teeth against the pain of the energy washing over her, Zara reached the control panel. Her hands flew over the alien interface, applying the principles she had learned in her classes to stabilize the singularity. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the vortex began to shrink. The crackling energy subsided, and finally, with a soft pop, the singularity collapsed in on itself and disappeared. The atrium was silent for a long moment. Then, a cheer erupted from the assembled aliens. Zara found herself surrounded by her classmates, all talking at once, praising her bravery and quick thinking. Professor Xilex approached, his blue skin shimmering with what Zara had learned to recognize as intense emotion. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice filled with awe, "you've done the impossible. Your actions today have saved countless lives." As the excitement began to die down, Zara noticed the Zixcree students standing off to the side. Their glowing eyes were fixed on her, But this time, she saw something different in their gaze. Was it respect? One of the six Kree stepped forward, its metallic voice resonating in the now quiet atrium. "We may have misjudged the potential of organic life forms," it said. "Perhaps there is more to learn from your species than we initially believed." Zara stood tall, feeling the new sense of confidence wash over her. She had come to Galactic University to learn, but in this moment, she realized that she had just as much to teach. As news of Zara's heroic act spread through the university and beyond, the perception of humanity in the galactic community began to shift. No longer were humans seen as simply a curiosity from a backwater planet. Now, they were recognized as a species with unique abilities and untapped potential. But even as Zara basked in the glow of her newfound recognition, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Somewhere in the vast expanse of the universe, greater challenges awaited. Challenges that might require the special blend of ingenuity, adaptability, and courage that humanity had to offer. The cosmic crisis. The aftermath of the quantum singularity incident brought significant changes to Zara's life at Galactic University. No longer was she just the curious human exchange student. Now, she was a hero whose actions had saved the entire campus. The attention was both exhilarating and overwhelming. As Zara entered the grand lecture hall for her advanced xenopolitics class, she could feel the eyes of her alien classmates following her. Some looked on with admiration, others with curiosity, and a few, particularly among the six Kree, with what seemed like cautious reassessment. Professor Lyrics, a tall, serpentine alien with iridescent scales, slithered to the center of the room. Her forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air as she surveyed the class. "Today," she began, her voice a sibilant whisper that nonetheless carried to every corner of the hall, "we will be discussing a matter of utmost importance to the galactic community." The room fell silent, all attention focused on the professor. "A crisis has emerged in the Cygnus arm of our galaxy," Lyrics continued. "A chain of supernovas has begun, far earlier than any of our models predicted. If unchecked, this chain reaction could destabilize entire sectors, leading to the destruction of countless inhabited worlds." A wave of murmurs swept through the class. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. The scale of such a disaster was almost beyond comprehension. Professor Lyrics' eyes narrowed. "The Galactic Council has been debating potential solutions, but so far, no consensus has been reached. Traditional methods of stellar manipulation have proven ineffective." Zara's mind raced. She thought of the stories she'd read back on Earth, of how humans had faced seemingly insurmountable challenges throughout history. Without thinking, she raised her hand. "Yes, Ms. Chen." Professor Lyrics' gaze fixed on her. "I was wondering," Zara began, her voice stronger than she felt. "Has anyone considered using quantum entanglement to create a network of stabilizing fields around the affected stars?" The room fell silent once more, but this time, Zara could feel the weight of every alien eye upon her. Professor Lyrics' tongue flicked out rapidly, a sign of intense interest. "Elaborate, please." Zara took a deep breath and continued. "Well, based on what we've learned about quantum mechanics and stellar physics, it might be possible to create a network of entangled particles spanning the affected region. By manipulating these particles from a safe distance, we could potentially dampen the cascade effect of the supernovas." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, from the back of the room, a six Kree student's metallic voice cut through the silence. "The human's proposal, while creative, is fundamentally flawed. The energy required for such a network would be astronomical, not to mention the technological hurdles." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the class, but Zara wasn't ready to give up. "What if," she pressed on, "we didn't try to stop the supernovas entirely, but instead guided their energy? We could use the quantum network to channel the explosive force into controlled corridors of space, minimizing the damage to inhabited systems." This time, the silence that followed was one of contemplation rather than dismissal. Professor Lyrix's scales shimmered with excitement. Ms. Chen, your idea is unorthodox, but it may have merit. I will bring this proposal to the attention of the Galactic Council immediately. As the class dispersed, buzzing with discussion about Zora's idea, she found herself surrounded by her friends. Clix's antennae were twitching rapidly. Zora, do you realize what you've done? You may have just proposed a solution to one of the greatest crises our galaxy has ever faced. Glob burbled in agreement, his gelatinous form rippling with excitement. It's unprecedented. To think, a solution inspired by a species that has barely begun its journey to the stars. Zyra's leaves had turned a vibrant shade of purple, her color for awe and admiration. This could change everything, Zora. The way the galaxy sees humanity, the role your species could play in our shared future. As the implications of her proposal sank in, Zora felt a mix of pride and trepidation. She had come to Galactic University to learn, but now she found herself at the center of a potential paradigm shift in galactic affairs. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. News of Zora's proposal spread rapidly through the university and beyond. She found herself called into meetings with top scientists and government officials, explaining and refining her idea. But not everyone was enthusiastic about a human potentially solving a crisis that had stumped the greatest minds in the galaxy. As Zora walked to the quantum physics lab one evening, she overheard a heated conversation around the corner. "It's preposterous," a voice hissed. Zora recognized it as belonging to Professor Vex, a notoriously conservative member of the faculty. "We cannot pin the fate of entire civilizations on the fanciful notions of a primitive species." "But the math checks out," another voice countered. "The human's proposal, while unconventional, could work." "And what then?" Vex snapped. "Do we simply hand over the keys to the galaxy to these humans? They're barely out of their planetary cradle. They cannot be trusted with such power and influence." Zora's heart raced. She had known there would be resistance to her idea, but hearing the naked disdain in Professor Vex's voice brought home the reality of the situation. This wasn't just about solving a scientific problem. It was about humanity's place in the galactic community. As she entered the lab, Zora found a team of scientists from various species already hard at work, running simulations based on her proposal. Among them, she was surprised to see several Zixcree, their cybernetic bodies interfacing directly with the quantum computers. One of the Zixcree turned to her, its glowing eyes unreadable. "Your hypothesis shows promise, human. We have recalibrated our initial assessment of your species' potential." Zora nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. It wasn't exactly warmth, but coming from the Zixcree, it was high praise indeed. As the days turned into weeks, the work on the quantum network solution intensified. Zora found herself pushing the limits of her knowledge, collaborating with minds vastly older and more experienced than her own. Yet, time and again, her unique human perspective provided insights that helped overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Finally, after countless simulations and refinements, the team was ready to present their findings to the Galactic Council. Zora stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, her heart pounding, but her voice steady as she explained the proposed solution. As she concluded her presentation, the council chamber erupted into a cacophony of alien voices. Some were supportive, others skeptical, and a few outright hostile. The Arch-Counselor, a being of pure energy contained within a ceremonial vessel, raised a tendril for silence. "The proposal is bold, unprecedented." Its voice resonated through the chamber. "But the crisis we face demands bold action. We will put it to a vote." Zora held her breath as the council members cast their votes. The tension in the room was palpable, the fate of countless lives hanging in the balance. Finally, the Arch-Counselor spoke again. "By a narrow margin, the council has voted to proceed with the human proposal. Ms. Chen, your solution will be implemented immediately." A cheer went up from Zora's supporters, while those opposed muttered darkly among themselves. As the council chamber began to clear, Zora felt a hand on her shoulder. She turned to see Professor Xilex, all four of his eyes shimmering with pride. "You've done it, Zora," he said softly. "You've not only proposed a solution to save countless lives, but you've also opened the door for humanity to take its place among the great civilizations of our galaxy." As Zora looked out over the assembled aliens, some congratulatory, others wary, but all now acutely aware of humanity's potential, she realized that this was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead, implementing the solution and proving that humanity was ready for the responsibilities that came with its newfound recognition. The fate of entire civilizations now rested, in part, on human ingenuity. Zara squared her shoulders, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The journey that had begun with her arrival at Galactic University was about to take her, and all of humanity, to the stars and beyond. Humanity's stand. The days following the Galactic Council's decision were a whirlwind of activity. Zara found herself at the center of a massive, interstellar effort to implement her quantum network solution. The grand halls of Galactic University had been transformed into a command center, with scientists, engineers, and diplomats from across the galaxy working tirelessly to prevent the impending disaster. As Zara entered the central operations room, she was struck by the gravity of the situation. Holographic displays showed the advancing wave of supernovas, a cascade of stellar destruction, creeping ever closer to populated systems. The room buzzed with a mixture of alien languages and the soft hum of advanced technology. Professor Xilex approached, his usually calm demeanor tinged with urgency. "Zara, we've encountered a problem. The quantum entanglement network is stable, but we're struggling to generate enough power to influence the supernovas on the scale we need." Zara's mind raced. This was the moment of truth, the point where humanity's potential would truly be put to the test. She closed her eyes, thinking back to her studies on Earth, to the history of human innovation, in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. Suddenly, an idea struck her. "What if we don't try to generate all the power ourselves?" she said, her eyes snapping open. "What if we use the energy of the supernovas themselves to power our network?" A hush fell over the nearby aliens as they turned to listen. "Explain," urged Professor Xilex, his four eyes focused intently on Zara. "It's like surfing," Zara said, drawing on an Earth analogy. "Instead of trying to stop the wave, we ride it, using its own energy to control its direction. We could set up quantum siphons at the edge of each supernova, channeling a fraction of its power into our network. The more stars that go nova, the more power we have to control the rest." The room erupted into a flurry of discussion. Aliens of all species began running calculations and simulations based on Zara's proposal. A Zixkri scientist, its metallic body gleaming under the harsh lights, stepped forward. "The human's proposal is not without merit. Our simulations show a 68% chance of success, significantly higher than our previous models." However, not everyone was convinced. Professor Vex, who had been overseeing a team of energy specialists, strode toward Zora, his face contorted in a scowl. "This is madness," he hissed. "You propose to surf on the very destruction we're trying to prevent. The risk is too great. One miscalculation, and we could accelerate the very catastrophe we're trying to avoid." Zara stood her ground, her voice steady as she addressed not just Professor Vex, but the entire room. "Yes, there are risks, but right now we're facing certain defeat. Sometimes the boldest move is the safest one. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before, on a smaller scale. Each time, it was our willingness to take calculated risks that saved us." She gestured to the holographic display of the advancing supernovas. "We don't have the luxury of perfect safety. We must act, and we must act now." A tense silence fell over the room. Then, slowly, voices began to rise in support of Zora's plan. Even some of the more skeptical aliens grudgingly admitted that it might be their best chance. Professor Xilex placed a hand on Zora's shoulder, pride evident in his multifaceted eyes. "Very well, Ms. Chen, your plan is approved. Let's put it into action. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Zara worked alongside the brightest minds in the galaxy, refining the details of her plan and preparing for its implementation. As the quantum siphons were deployed at the edge of the supernova front, tension in the command center reached a fever pitch. Zara stood before the main control interface, her hands hovering over the alien technology. This was the moment of truth. With a deep breath, she activated the system. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the holographic display began to change. The first quantum siphon flared to life, drawing energy from the nearest supernova. Then another and another. "It's working," someone shouted. The room erupted in a chorus of alien cheers and exclamations. Zara's fingers flew over the controls, guiding the energy through the quantum network. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. She could almost feel the cosmic forces at her fingertips, bending to her will. As the hours passed, the tide began to turn. The cascade of supernovas slowed, then stopped altogether. Using the siphoned energy, Zara and her team were able to stabilize the remaining at-risk stars, averting the crisis. When the last star was secured, and the danger had finally passed, a stunned silence fell over the command center. Then, gradually, it gave way to a growing roar of triumph. Aliens of all species embraced one another, their differences forgotten in the shared joy of survival. Zara found herself lifted onto the shoulders of her alien friends, Clix, Glob, and Zara. As she looked out over the sea of celebrating faces, she saw something she never expected: respect, admiration, and gratitude directed not just at her, but at the potential of humanity as a whole. Even the Zixkri, usually so aloof and disdainful of organic life, approached Zora. Their leader, its metallic voice tinged with something almost like emotion, spoke. "We have reassessed our evaluation of your species, Zora Chen of Earth. Humanity has proven itself to be remarkable." As the initial euphoria began to subside, the implications of what had just occurred began to sink in. Humanity, represented by a single exchange student, had just saved much of the known galaxy from destruction. The balance of power and the perception of Earth's place in the cosmic order had shifted irrevocably. Ambassadors from various worlds approached Zora, eager to establish closer ties with Earth. Scientists clamored to learn more about human thought processes and problem-solving techniques. Even those who had been skeptical of Zora's plan now looked at her with new respect. Professor Xylex made his way through the crowd, all four of his eyes shimmering with emotion. "Zora," he said, his voice filled with awe, "you've done more than save countless lives. You've opened up a new chapter in galactic history. The human capacity for innovative thinking, for taking calculated risks in the face of overwhelming odds. These are qualities that will reshape our understanding of the universe." As the celebration continued around her, Zara felt the weight of her achievements settle on her shoulders. She had come to Galactic University to learn, to prove that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Instead, she had shown the galaxy that humanity might be the key to solving problems that had stymied even the most advanced civilizations. The future that lay ahead was both thrilling and daunting. Earth would soon be thrust onto the galactic stage, facing challenges and opportunities beyond anything in human history. But as Zara looked around at her alien friends and colleagues, she knew that humanity wouldn't face this future alone. The crisis had been averted, but Zara's journey, and humanity's journey to the stars, was only just beginning. A new era. The weeks following the averted supernova crisis were a whirlwind of activity and change. Galactic University, once a quiet center of learning, had become the focal point of a new era in interstellar relations. Zara found herself at the heart of it all, a reluctant ambassador for humanity thrust into the spotlight of galactic politics. As Zara entered the grand auditorium for the emergency session of the Galactic Council, she couldn't help but marvel at how much had changed. The room was packed with representatives from every corner of the galaxy, Their diverse forms a testament to the vast tapestry of life in the universe. But today, all eyes were on her, the human who had saved them all. The Arch-Counselor, its energy form pulsing with anticipation, called the session to order. Esteemed colleagues, it began, its voice resonating through the chamber. We are gathered here today to discuss the implications of recent events and to determine the path forward for our galactic community. A new era. In the months following the averted supernova crisis, Galactic University hummed with an energy unlike anything in its long history. The campus had become the focal point of a new era in interstellar relations, with Zara at the center of it all. As Zara walked through the crystalline corridors, she could hardly believe the transformation. Holographic displays showcased the quantum network that had saved the galaxy, with her name prominently featured. Aliens of all species nodded respectfully as she passed, some even bowing in the manner of their homeworlds. She entered the grand lecture hall, now packed with not just students, but diplomats, scientists, and leaders from across the galaxy. At the podium stood Arch-Counselor Zix, the highest-ranking official of the Galactic Council. Its energy form shimmered with anticipation as it addressed the assembled crowd. "We stand at the dawn of a new age." The Arch-Counselor's voice resonated through the hall. The recent crisis has shown us that diversity of thought and approach is not just beneficial, but essential for the continued growth and survival of our galactic community. Zara felt a surge of pride as the Arch-Counselor continued. In light of recent events, the Galactic Council has unanimously voted to extend full membership status to Earth, effective immediately.